Imagine you are sitting in your modern, temperature-controlled bathroom right now. You reach for that soft, white quilted roll of double-ply luxury paper. It is a mundane, almost mindless action you perform multiple times every day, but your comfort is actually a very recent miracle in human history. Now picture yourself in a sun-drenched, dusty marketplace in ancient Greece. Instead of a soft roll, you reach for a small, jagged piece of pottery. If the thought of that makes you flinch, welcome to ancient logic. Subscribe to the channel because your ancestors were tougher than you think. How did humanity survive for thousands of years without a single roll of paper? The answer reveals why we are so obsessed with personal space today. In the ancient world, hygiene was a matter of survival and creative grit. Let's start with the scrapers who inhabited the rocky Mediterranean coastlines. Ancient Greeks relied on something called pissoi to finish their daily business. These were essentially small, smooth, oval-shaped stones found on local beaches. An old Greek proverb actually warned that 3 stones are enough for the task. Imagine carefully selecting your 3 stones before heading to the public latrine. This historical reality explains why you feel a need to prepare for everything today. But stones were not the only abrasive tool our ancestors used to stay clean. They also utilized broken shards of ceramic pottery, known as ostraca, for hygiene. This practice took on a surprisingly petty and political role in ancient society. People would sometimes scratch the names of their enemies onto the ceramic shards. They were literally using their political rivals as a tool for waste disposal. This is the ancient version of sending a very aggressive, very messy email. It proves that humans have always used their environment to settle social scores. If you have ever felt like dumping on a bad boss, you are remembering. Wait, did these sharp ceramic edges cause more problems than they actually solved? Evidence suggests that these scrapers were quite brutal on the human body. Yet, our ancestors valued the feeling of being clean over the physical discomfort. This grit is why you can push through a long, annoying work meeting. Meanwhile, across the sea, the Romans were developing a much softer alternative. The Roman Empire is famous for its massive, communal, and very public latrines. Instead of stones, they used a xylospongium, which was a sea sponge on a stick. This tool sat in a bucket of vinegar or salt water between users. When you were finished, you grabbed the stick and used the communal sponge. Imagine the sheer bravery of sharing a cleaning tool with a complete stranger. Some historians believe the phrase "getting the wrong end of the stick" started here. Grabbing the sponge end instead of the wooden handle was a catastrophic mistake. This explains why we are so careful about red flags in modern dating. We are hardwired to avoid the wrong end of the stick at all costs. However, there was a dark side to this shared Roman hygiene ritual. The buckets of vinegar were not nearly enough to kill off ancient parasites. Archaeological finds in Roman toilets show high levels of intestinal worm eggs. Even though they felt cleaner, they were actually spreading disease through the ranks. This is the ancient equivalent of the germs on a public touchscreen. It shows that humans have always traded a bit of safety for convenience. But what happened in regions where sea sponges were not available? In the ancient East, specifically China and Japan, they used wooden shit sticks. Known as chugi in Japan, these were flat bamboo spatulas designed for scraping. Archaeologists working along the Silk Road found these sticks buried for 2 millennia. They still contained traces of waste and specific parasites from those ancient travelers. These travelers were crossing continents with nothing but a piece of bamboo. This explains why you feel a sense of relief when you see a clean restroom. Your ancestors spent thousands of years worrying about the tools of the trade. Now, let's look at how humans in colder or more rural climates adapted. Vikings living in the harsh northern lands favored the use of soft moss. Moss is naturally absorbent and provides a much gentler experience than a stone. Using what the forest provided was the ultimate survival hack for the Northmen. This is why walking through a green forest feels so strangely comforting today. Our ancestors viewed the natural world as a massive, functional medicine cabinet. In the Americas, early settlers turned to a very specific agricultural byproduct. Dried corn cobs were kept in baskets inside outhouses for generations of families. The texture of a corn cob was surprisingly effective for the task at hand. You could rotate the cob to find a fresh surface for every wipe. This ingenuity kept rural populations functional before paper became a cheap commodity. It is the reason you feel a strange satisfaction when you find a multi-purpose tool. But what about the humans living in the frozen, treeless Arctic regions? They didn't have moss or corn cobs, so they turned to the snow. A handful of fresh snow is a cold but incredibly effective cleaning agent. This extreme adaptation shows that the human spirit will find a way anywhere. It explains why you can handle a cold shower when the heater breaks. Your ancestors were literally using frozen water to maintain their basic dignity. The shift toward paper actually began in China during the 6th century. By the 1300s, the Chinese government was mass-producing hundreds of thousands of sheets. These were specifically designated for the use of the high imperial court. If you were a commoner, you were still stuck with the bamboo sticks. Hygiene has always been a status symbol, even before the designer brands. This is why you feel a little fancy when you stay in a 5-star hotel. In England, the king had a literal groom of the stool to assist him. This was a high-ranking position for a nobleman who handled the royal hygiene. While the king used fine linen, the commoners often used their own sleeves. The tow rag was another invention used by sailors on long ocean voyages. They would dangle a frayed, thick rope into the salt water of the sea. After use, the ocean would wash the rope for the next person in line. This communal struggle is what built the social bonds of early human tribes. We survived because we were willing to share even the most difficult burdens. The 1800s brought the era of the mail-order catalog into American homes. People used the Sears, Roebuck, and Company catalog as a source of paper. The Farmer's Almanac even came with a hole pre-punched in the corner. This allowed people to hang it on a nail right in the outhouse. You would read an article and then use the page for your hygiene. This is the ancient version of scrolling through social media on your phone. We have always looked for ways to distract ourselves during our private moments. But even early commercial toilet paper had a very dangerous literal edge. Until the 1930s, paper manufacturing often left tiny wood shards in the sheets. Companies actually advertised their paper as being splinter-free to attract customers. Imagine the absolute terror of a splinter in the worst possible place. This explains why you are so picky about the brands you buy today. Your brain is still trying to protect you from the splinters of the past. However, wiping is not the only way humans have stayed clean through history. In many cultures, water has always been the superior and preferred method. The lota, or small water pot, is a staple in many ancient traditions. In these cultures, the left hand is reserved strictly for the cleaning process. The right hand is kept clean for eating and shaking hands with others. This strict cultural rule is a brilliant adaptation to prevent the spread of disease. It shows that ancient humans were intuitive scientists long before modern laboratories. They understood the why of hygiene even if they couldn't see the germs. This is why you feel an instinctive urge to wash your hands after touching dirt. You are not just being clean. You are following a 5,000-year-old survival protocol. Our ancestors didn't have it easy, but they never gave up on their dignity. They turned stones, sticks, and snow into the foundations of human health. Every time you reach for a soft roll, you are benefiting from their struggle. You are the result of thousands of years of creative, gritty, and brave survival. Your modern stress over a slow Wi-Fi connection is a beautiful luxury. Because at least you don't have to worry about splinters in your bathroom tissue. You are not malfunctioning, you are just living in the easiest time in history. Your ancestors would be proud of how far we have come from the stones. Hit subscribe to Ancient Logic because history is way more personal than you realized. You are always going to appreciate that double-ply roll after hearing this. Consider the immense journey of the humble seashell used by coastal tribes for centuries. They had to learn exactly which edges were smooth enough for human skin. This trial and error process is the root of all human technological advancement. We are a species of problem solvers who refuse to stay dirty or uncomfortable. Think about the sailors who relied on the tow rag during stormy, freezing nights. Their survival depended on their ability to endure the biting salt of the sea. This endurance is mirrored in your ability to survive a grueling work week. We often forget that our ancestors were experts at making the best of nothing. They didn't see a rock as just a rock, but as a necessary tool. They didn't see moss as just a plant, but as a rare, soft comfort. This perspective shift is what allowed early tribes to conquer every difficult environment. When you feel overwhelmed by modern life, remember the 3 stones of Greece. They did more with a few pebbles than most people do with a smartphone. Hygiene was a constant battle against the elements and the limits of the body. And yet, through every era, we found a way to maintain our collective self-respect. Whether using a bamboo spatula or a piece of fine Royal English linen, the goal was always the same: to rise above the filth of the earth. You carry that same drive for order and cleanliness in your DNA today. It is why a messy room feels like a threat to your inner peace. You are following the ancient logic of a clean and functional living space. Never forget that the tools change, but the human heart stays the same. We are all just trying to feel a little more comfortable in a harsh world. Next time you see a seashell, remember it was once a vital survival tool. Next time you see a corn cob, think of the pioneers in their outhouses. Our history is messy, but it is also a beautiful story of human perseverance. If you enjoyed this trip through the bathroom habits of the ancient past, make sure to share this video with someone who takes their plumbing for granted. Ancient Logic is here to remind you that your life is actually quite amazing. You are the champion of a history that was written with grit and stones. Stay curious, stay clean, and we will see you in the next deep dive. Your ancestors are watching, and they are glad you finally have soft paper rolls. Humanity has come a long way from scraping with broken pieces of ancient pottery. But that same resourcefulness still lives inside you every single day you wake up. You were built to survive the hardest conditions and come out feeling perfectly refreshed. Take a moment to appreciate the quiet miracle of a functional and private bathroom. It is a privilege that the mightiest kings of history could only dream of having. And you have it right there at the end of the hallway every morning. That is the ultimate victory of the human spirit over the trials of nature.